Thanks, Dr. Pilani, for extremely insightful ideas and suggestions for way forward. Now I would like to invite Dr. Ruchita Berry from IDSA.
Thank you, Chair, Honorable Minister, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a great honor to be here amongst you. It is really a momentous occasion because we are meeting today, the eve of the visit by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa later this year to India, and also we are meeting in the backdrop of 25 years of reopening of India's diplomatic relations with South Africa, 125 years since the incident, the Peter Meretz incident, which moved Mahatma Gandhi to take up Satyagraha, 100 years or celebrating the centenary of Honorable President of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, and the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. So this, my statement here shows that, that the relationship between India and South Africa is indeed historic, and that we've been partners in past and we are moving forward. And I would like to here quote something from what President Mandela had said about relationship between India and South Africa. He had said that, and I quote him, "India and South Africa are two countries that would be so closely tied by bonds of sentiment, common values, and shared experience by affinity of culture, tradition, and geography." Those ties do remain, but in the last 25 years, how has our relationship moved forward? India and South Africa today are the leading powers in the global south. They are the emerging economies. How should our relationship move forward? So I would basically talk about four points here, and in suggesting ways how we can improve our relationship further. I would also like to mention here in the outset that this visit by President Ramaphosa is also historic because it's a time when South Africa has been doing a review of its foreign policy. And the fact that Cyril Ramaphosa is visiting India also reiterates the fact that India is an important partner for South Africa. And India is central to South Africa's partnership in the region. So in terms of how the relationship should go forward, I think the first point I'd like to make here is that trade is important. Trade and investment are an important part of how our relationship is moving. President Ramaphosa, during his State of Nation address last year in February, mentioned that economy, the South African economy, is a priority for him. So increasing investment flows into the country is very important for South Africa. And how are we moving forward on this? I think the fact that there are around 130 to 150 Indian companies doing business in South Africa and India, and they have generated about 18,000 jobs in South Africa and have invested about $8 billion in the past, shows that India is on the right track in terms of building its relationship with Africa. It is not just led by trade, and it's also in terms of bringing in investment in South Africa, empowering the local people, and generating jobs. Unemployment is an important concern in South Africa. So I think trade and investment, economic issues would be an important area of partnership between India and South Africa in the future. Second, I think we have a shared oceanic history. So oceans do remain an important area of priority for both the countries. And South Africa, as was mentioned earlier, has prioritized this through the Operation Pakiza. They have moved away from the sea blindness, which some of the experts within South Africa have been quoting the South African government for. I would say that it's been the same case in India. We've also been sea blind for a very long time, and that's why we had the situation in Mumbai in 2008, the 2811. And enhancing our maritime security or empowering or exploring the oceans for cooperation is something that both India and South Africa share. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi particularly has observed in past that blue chakra of what is in the India's national flag represents the potential of blue revolution or ocean economy. So both India and South Africa are focusing on energizing our relations through building up the ocean economy, and I think that will be the second point of cooperation. Third, security cooperation, I think, is an important area of future cooperation too, and existing and future cooperation between India and South Africa. We have a long history of defense cooperation with South Africa. South Africans were the ones who responded to India's plea during the 1998 Kargil crisis by supplying the ammunition for the 155 mm howitzers. So India can never forget that. And we have a MOU on defense cooperation, but I think we should move beyond looking at defense, the traditional defense cooperation. Today, world over, security is not defined purely on defense or protection of the national boundary. Is not the definition of security. Security is moving more in terms of a holistic way of looking at security. And in India too, I think Narendra Modi government has looked at security as something which also enhances development. That's why he has launched this initiative of SAGAR, Security and Growth for All. So again, for both India and South Africa, it will be important to look at security not in terms of the traditional terms, but and the non-traditional security terms, and lead to increase cooperation in those fields. Third, I think fourth, I think it's very important here to talk about a partnership across Africa between India and South Africa. For South Africa, Africa has been a priority. That is what its foreign policy had focused on for a very long time. And in case of India too, I think Africa has been a priority. This is very much reflected in the fact that about 50% of India's lines of credit today go to Africa. So in terms of development cooperation, Africa is a priority, and I think India and South Africa could discuss and share their experiences in dealing with the African countries and come up with some solution and ways forward and how to take this relationship forward. So finally, I would leave you by paraphrasing what President Cyril Ramaphosa said, and suggest that now is the time to work together in the honor of Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi to build better relations between India and South Africa. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruchita. Friends, now the moment has come. I would request Honorable Minister for her remarks. Madam Minister, you already heard the panel. Very rich ideas have come up. I don't have to reproduce them, but definitely 2 points are important. One, as you celebrate 25 years of independence of South Africa, we keenly look forward for your remarks. And as Ruchita very rightly mentioned, we also celebrate 150 years of Mahatma Gandhi and 100 years of Nelson Mandela. Incidentally, RIS and the South African High Commission here in Delhi organized a joint event which was very widely attended by other African missions here, and we could identify key areas which have been mentioned to you: IORA, BRICS, IPSA, IPSAMAR, and of course a couple of other areas of global importance. Madam Minister, I also want to bring to your attention that today in the room we have 27 countries here. RIS, as you know, is a think tank working on diverse areas. We have recently launched a major program on science diplomacy, and we have 34 participants from 27 countries who are sitting in this room, keen to listen to you and bring in advantages of how complementarities within South is to be leveraged. So, Madam Minister, Madam Reginah Makgabo Mhaule, you have the floor, Madam Minister.
It's okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Program Director, for inviting me to speak in this very important meeting, a meeting of think tanks, to come and give an account of the 25 years of South Africa's freedom. And as I do that, I know that it might not feel like a research, but we cannot have this information if there are no think tanks to keep the information, because to us today it's real life, but to our children will be history. And this history shows that the world is not stationary. It's dynamic, it's changing every day. So you cannot do things the same way we used to do during the time of our ancestors. So let me acknowledge, but limited to, the chairperson of RIS, Dr. Mohan Kumar, and also greetings to the panelists, all of them very important people. Very knowledgeable people, greetings to me, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. In South Africa it's afternoon now, here it's evening. I said yesterday when we greet in my language, I say sanbonani, and the response will be yebo. Sanbonani? Yebo. That's how we respond in Nguni language. That will include about 4 languages in South Africa: Xhosa, Zulu, Siswati, and Sindebele. I'm honored to be addressing this distinguished audience and wish to thank the RIS for the opportunity to address you today. I'm particularly pleased that one of the first engagement we are undertaking in our Silver Jubilee celebration, 25 years of our freedom, is happening here in India, as the people of South Africa sought to overthrow the shackles of oppression brought to bear upon us. India, newly independent then, was one of the most principled supporters of the struggle against apartheid and racial discrimination in South Africa. It was India which consistently called on the international community to act on the issue of apartheid South Africa in international fora. It is not an exaggerated exaggeration to say that South Africa is today able to celebrate 25 years of freedom, in no small part due to the efforts of countries such as India. As such, it is befitting for me to share our 25 years of freedom celebrations with our friends here in India. So it's a bonus that other countries are also here, and countries which supported South Africa, because South Africa alone could not have been where it is today. It is the work of a collective efforts by many countries. Our ties with India, of course, can be traced further back than India's support for the anti-apartheid struggle. The arrival of the first Indian in South Africa over 100 and whatever years ago would richly contribute to our nation's diversity and economic development for generations. This strong historical and cultural basis has linked our countries and relations, leading to the timeless and deep special relations between our nations. We also share our two icons, the jewel of India, Nelson Mandela, whose centenary we celebrated in 2018 last year, and Mahatma Gandhi, on whom our country bestowed in 2002. The Supreme Order of the Companion of O.R. Tambo in gold. We join the Indian people in the commemoration of the 150th anniversary of this icon. These values that he lived and espoused would continue to shape our sister countries. Ladies and gentlemen, it's remarkable that it was only 25 years ago that South Africa assumed its rightful place in the community of nations